Okay, so where I left off at the end of the last video is like the Ceramic Blade 2.0, the first two versions of the Joss build with the Bloody Sword and the Gnomic Blade. Long story short, both of them, Leo's getting stronger with the Bloody Sword. Every time he reaches a turn, his attack is going up. With the Gnomic Blade, depending on what Leo does, as far as using items and magic and dealing damage, the sword scales that way. Both of them, with the Bloody Sword, it's just every time Leo reaches a turn, his attack is going up and your party's defense is going up. With the Gnomic Blade, you depending on what items Leo is using and magic, depending on what magic Leo's using, what items he's using, how much damage he's dealing, the sword scales that way. Your party is still getting a slight defensive oriented buff every turn as well with that weapon if you're using the Joss build, just like with the Bloody Sword. I haven't played the Joss build with the Ceramic Blade 2.0, and I'm not going to because that's because I have a pretty good idea of how it would work out, and it would pretty much be like the antithesis of what the Bloody Sword is with the Joss build, meaning, it's kind of like a hybrid between the Bloody Sword and the Gnomic Blade, the Gnomic Blade, and that based on, again, what it is that you're doing and to a lesser extent what's happening around you in a fight. For the most part, Leo's getting a defensive oriented buff. I hate to say every turn, but again, depending on how you play, it's like a defensive version of, it's like Joss build part 1, 2 mixed together with a defensive kind of defensive minded thing behind it. It's basically like the first two versions of the Joss build put together. It's just Leo's defense is going up, relative to what you're doing, and to a lesser extent what's happening around you. That's why it's kind of like a hybrid version of the first two parts of the Joss build, just defensive oriented. So I'm not going to play with the Ceramic Blade 2.0. I'm not going to try to showcase that, but I have since pretty much I've pretty much come to the conclusion that using the Ceramic Blade that you start the game with the Joss build is probably like the best version, only because when you're using the Ceramic Blade with the Joss build, what's happening is it's like the Ceramic Blade 2.0 with the Joss build, but perfected in that it's not just Leo that's getting the buff. When you're using Joss build part 1, 2, and 3 with the Ceramic Blade 2.0, your party with the first two builds is getting a defensive buff while Leo's getting an offensive buff. And then with the Ceramic Blade 2.0, Leo's getting a defensive buff and your party's attack is going up. With the Ceramic Blade, just using the Ceramic Blade with the Joss build, which I believe to be the perfected version, what's happening is everyone, Leo included, is getting an equally, everyone is benefiting equally with a defensive-oriented buff. The only way your attack is going to go up while using that weapon as part of the Joss build is if you were to use things like Concentrate, which strengthens your ability to land a critical hit, and then drink like an energy drink, which will increase your attack. If you're in the dimension, those little power-up buffs that increase your attack. that you can use in conjunction with either of those things I just said will also increase your attack. But that's the only way you're going to get stronger using the ceramic blade with the Joss build. Essentially, what you're doing is, everyone that's fighting with you as the fight goes on is getting. So I'll try to explain it one more time, starting from the beginning. So with the Bloody Sword, again, every time Leo reaches a turn, his attack is going up. Your party's defense is going up as well every time that happens. So every time Leo's turn reaches a turn, like if you're using the Joss build part 1 with the Bloody Sword, every time Leo reaches a turn, his attack goes up. Your party's defense goes up. As the fight progresses, depending on what's happening, Leo's defense and subsequently attack might change, but your party is steadily getting stronger defensively. The Nanomic Blade, similar effect to everything I just said. It's just the sword itself, and subsequently Leo's attack has a chance to get more potent depending on what it is that you're doing. Ceramic Blade 2.0, I haven't played with it yet, but I have a pretty good idea. It's like both of those put together. It's just that Leo's defense is what's changing, and your party is getting a slight attack boost. With the Ceramic Blade, which I believe to be the final version of the Joss build, Leo's attack isn't changing. Only when you drink an energy drink, or if you're in the Dimension, you power up through one of those power-ups they have in there, or use all of those, and or you are using Concentrate. That's the only way Leo's attack's going up. If you're using, the Ceramic Blade version of the Joss build, which is what I'm probably going to play indefinitely in my time with Fantasian. When you're running the Ceramic Blade as part of the Joss build, long story short, as the fight goes on, depending on what it is that you're doing and what is happening in the fight, your defense, everyone's defense, Leo's defense and your party's defense is going up. So there's less room for error, especially when you're fighting bosses, to be like tripped up. In Shangri-La, neither of the Joss build part 1 or 2 worked, mainly because of the weather mechanic in conjunction with the fact that Leo is my main damage dealer, was just throwing the fight off horribly in the boss's favor. I was able to kind of squeeze by the Guardian with using Tire Fang upgraded as part of the Joss build, and I actually got through the first part of the Void Realm with that same build, but in the middle part of the Void Realm, essentially the second part, that's where I had to kind of rediscover a newer version of the Joss build and stumbled upon the Ceramic Blade version, and actually was like really close to beating the first boss in the middle Void Realm after switching to said build with only 22 machines left out of a possible 150 that progressively get stronger as the fight goes on. But I think I popped the super too early with Prickle, and it kind of threw everything off. So after kind of being defeated in that way, quite literally in the game and also spiritually, I kind of resigned myself to just using the Ceramic Blade as my kind of penultimate version of the quote-unquote Joss build, and kind of returned to Shangri-La before to finish out the level 80 grind, and ultimately went back to the kind of snowy area outside of the volcanic cavern because there's a chrysalis that spawned there, as do they also spawned in the plateau part of Shangri-La, but they drop Deus Augite at a very, 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 very low rate, so that's what I'm doing now there.